Philippe Verbiest, good morning, first of all. Philippe Verbiest is the legal advisor of the UCI. I would like to ask you some questions. Mr. Verbiest, the CAS has ruled that the British Olympic Association policy related to the selection of British athletes for the Olympic Games was not in compliance with the World Anti-Doping Code. Effectively, this overturns British lifetime ban of those found guilty of any anti-doping violation. As men with a very in-depth knowledge in sports, what is your first reaction knowing this decision?
Well, the CAS decision is not a surprise for me, not at all. The ban from the Olympic team and a ban for life for anti-doping violations in the past is to be considered as a sanction for doping, and that sanction is not provided for in the World Anti-Doping Code that the British Olympic Association had accepted to comply with. So the sanction exceeds the regulatory framework that is in force and that is binding upon the British Olympic Association. So a sanction that is outside that regulatory framework cannot be imposed. So from a legal point of view, this is quite a normal decision. That does not mean that there is no value in the rule of the British Association, but it only means that from a legal point of view, it cannot be applied under the current framework of the World Anti-Doping Code.
Looking back into the past, Mr. Verbiest, the UCI rules foresaw that an athlete could be excluded from an event, but also at that time CAS was not in favor. So also from UCI perspective, I think you have not been surprised.
Well, before the World Anti-Doping Code came into force, the UCI rules indeed provided for the possibility to impose not only a period of suspension, a period of ineligibility, but also on top of that a ban from one or more specific races. As for example, the first World Championships or the first Olympic Games after a rider returned to competition after a period of suspension. That's exactly what the Osaka rule of the IOC is. And indeed, that possibility was abolished by the World Anti-Doping Code and could not be applied anymore as from 2004. So the UCI and I, on behalf of UCI, asked WADA to keep that rule. That was denied, but I suppose that now that both the IOC and the British Olympic Association will join UCI in its request to reintroduce such possibility into the code.
Even some riders are now disappointed by this decision. Do you think that it will be affecting the global strategy of anti-doping fight from organizations like National Olympics Committees or International Federation?
For sure, I think there will be a renewed discussion on sanctions, but behind that discussion on sanctions, there is, in the first place, a discussion on values. Has a National Olympic Committee the right to send to the Olympic Games a team that is composed exclusively of athletes which have no doping history? Or has the Olympic Committee the right to ban from its games athletes who are just returning from a period of ineligibility for doping? On the other hand, there is also the interest of the athletes. If an athlete has been banned for 2 years, is it still justified to impose, in addition of that, an exclusion from, let's say, the Olympic Games, which should be the pinnacle of his career? If the Olympic Games is the most important competition in which an athlete can participate, then you have also to accept that a ban from the Olympic Games is the most heavy sanction that can be imposed upon an athlete. So is it still within proportion to combine those two sanctions, or should a ban from the Olympic Games be compensated by a reduction of the period of ineligibility? So these are very complicated discussions, and I guess it will be quite difficult to find a global agreement on that.
So, a very important question which remains open. Thank you, Philippe Verbiest.
Thank you.